Hi everyone, thanks for joining in. I'm excited to have Liz Alterman joining me today. Hi Liz.
Hi, Jackie. Thank you so much for having me.
So Liz has been an author for the day before, so it's great to have her back for an interview. She lives in New Jersey with her husband and three sons, and she spends most days repeatedly microwaving the same cup of coffee and looking up synonyms. So thanks Liz for joining us. And
Oh,
her
thanks for having me.
Her latest book is The Perfect Neighborhood. So, do you want to start off by telling us a bit about that?
Sure, Jackie. Thank you. And thanks for having me back. I had such a nice time chatting with your members and during the author of the day. And I think at that time, too, I was talking about The Perfect Neighborhood. It was
Mm,
released in July,
mm,
and it's a domestic suspense novel that centers around the neighborhood of Oak Hill, which is a fictional suburb, but very similar to the one where I currently live and one where I grew up. And it begins with a lot of gossip. You get to hear a lot of voices from the people in the neighborhood. And the main thing that they're chatting about when the book begins is Allison Langley, a former model and actress, has been spotted leaving her home at 4 in the morning. And she's sort of fleeing from her husband, who's a former rock star. And they've been this golden couple in Oak Hill. So people are kind of thinking, well, if that couple can't make it work, how will we make it
mm,
work? And everybody kind of weighs in on what could have possibly gone wrong. And then fast forward about 2 months, a little boy, Billy Barnes, is walking home from kindergarten and he disappears. And so, panic ensues and everybody kind of thinks, wow, we were so focused on the wrong thing. Why were we
mm,
worried about this marriage when there
mm,
could have been a predator in our midst? And sort of making things a little bit more complicated is the fact that the babysitter who was supposed to be waiting for the boy on his front porch, she's late that afternoon and she kind of has a secret of her own. And so we find that out. And the book is told from multiple points of view. So you're kind of getting every character's take on this situation that's unfolding kind of
mm,
live
mm.
in their midst, and everybody of course has an opinion about everybody else and who could be a suspect, and it kind of builds from there.
Yeah. And I've just recently finished reading it and really like how
Oh,
you
thank you.
said how things just slowly unravel and you find out more and more as it gets along and a lot of surprises.
Oh, thank you for reading it.
Mm, mm. And could you tell us what was the first idea you had for the perfect neighborhood?
Well, I woke up from a dream. It's funny, this is the only time
Mm,
it's ever happened to me, but I woke up from a dream with the idea for the beginning and the ending. I had no
okay.
middle for it.
Yeah.
It would be nice if the middle came along too, but I had to kind of build that out. But it was funny, I mentioned it. It was so vivid, and I told my husband, and he said, oh, I don't think that's going to work.
Mm,
Come up with something else. And so I spent about 6 months waiting for a new idea to come to me. But the whole time, as I was, running errands or washing dishes or doing some landscaping, these characters were kind of chatting in my head, and I could kind of see, well, what if this happened, or what if that
mm,
happened, or who's going to be the father of this boy, or what's the mom going to be like? And
mm,
so I waited for another idea to come, and nothing did. So
mm,
after about 6 months, I thought, you know what? I write some essays. That's like a love of mine, is to write nonfiction or write
mm,
humor lists, things like that. But I really wanted to kind of dive back into a longer project. So I sat down, I opened my laptop, and I just started typing all the ideas that had been coming to me. And before I knew it, I had about 6,000 words, and they were,
mm,
really
mm,
disjointed and all over the place, more like notes. But I
mm,
sort of, when I was done, it was almost like, coming out of a trance, that I was so focused. And I thought, okay, if I'm that invested, I have to try at least to see this through. So that was in December. And so I immediately then enrolled in a class. I'm really big on taking workshops where you can, kind of get that live feedback from your peers,
mm.
and they'll kind of keep you honest in terms of continuing to write, because I have a tendency to make a lot of excuses, like, oh, I was busy, it's okay that I didn't write,
Yeah.
or oh, I had that meeting, it's okay, or I took a freelance assignment.
Mm,
So knowing that I had to show up with 8 or 10 pages really kept me going. And then, of course, the instructor was so helpful, and my fellow writers. had a lot of great insights that helped me continue. And then unfortunately, we know the pandemic hit, and but we were very lucky. We were able to keep meeting online. And so again, that kept me going, and that was so helpful.
Yeah, yeah. And you said like the beginning and the ending came to you at the start. Did that stay the same in the end of the book, or did it
It
change?
did.
It did,
It did
yeah.
stay the It
Yeah.
did. I guess for I don't want to give away any spoilers, but
No.
for a brief moment I thought about maybe shifting the villain, or having an accomplice, let's say, but I decided to just kind of stick with my main
Yeah.
ideas.
Yeah. And can you tell us a little bit about like your writing, how you got into writing? Is it something growing up you always thought you wanted to be an author, or how did it actually happen?
I did. I think I always say one of my earliest memories is of my mom reading to me, and
Mm,
the library was and probably still is one of my favorite places to go. Even if I'm in another town, or if I'm, by a college or a
mm,
university, I love to just pop in a library. I feel like it's, the way some people feel about churches, or
mm,
just, maybe going to like a boutique hotel. Like, I'm just so happy in a library. And so that I always loved reading, and I guess I enjoyed writing, and I think I talked about it for so long that I wanted to try to write a novel, but I
mm,
never really, maybe have 100 pages in a drawer and not show it to anybody. But I did, it was something I always wanted to do. And so I did write for work. I was a journalist for a while, and a reporter, covering energy markets, and then local news. And when I lost my job in 2014, that was when I thought, I have this kind of open window of trying to figure out what to do next.
mm.
And when I was laid off, unfortunately, my husband had been laid off 6 weeks
Oh,
before.
wow.
And so it was just such a crazy, unexpected and scary time.
Mm,
And I think for me, a lot of the way that I process difficult either emotions or times is by writing through it.
mm,
And so that's when I just thought, I'm going to try to write a longer work. And
yeah.
that's when I wrote my memoir. And it was, I always say it was, at the time, I think we did luckily have benefits, because that was part of my husband's severance package. But I said, instead of
Mm,
going to see a therapist, I just kind of wrote my way,
yeah.
my way through it. So.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. It ended out well for you in the end.
Right. Yes.
Mm,
And it was kind of, it took my mind, or it gave me a way to kind of process everything that I was
mm,
feeling,
mm.
and kind of prove to myself, like, okay, you can write something longer than 1,000 words in
Yeah.
one shot.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
we've got a few people watching, so just wanted
Oh,
to
thank you.
say to the people watching, if you've got any questions for Liz, please type them in comments and I can ask them. Kim, she wonders if there's been any authors that have inspired you.
You know who I love is Sally Hepworth. I'm
Oh, yes.
actually reading
Yeah.
her book, The Soulmate, right now.
Yeah.
She's just an author that I feel like once you pick up her book, you're going to
Mm.
be sucked right into
Yeah,
it.
I've loved
And
all of her books that I've read. Mm.
yes, and I don't know if you follow her on Instagram, but
Yeah.
she is just,
She's great on
she's so,
Instagram, isn't she?
she,
Yeah.
she is. And I
Yeah.
love when she shares, like, I watched one of her Writerly Wednesday segments where she talked about, and of course she's busy. She's got 3 young children.
Mm,
And when she'll talk about writing in chunks of like 325 words 6 times a day to make it more manageable, I thought,
mm,
that's such an interesting idea, that so many people think, I need this block of
mm,
3 hours, or, I need uninterrupted time. And here's Sally, like, churning out a book a year, writing in these small chunks. So that was
mm,
really inspiring to me.
yeah. And could you tell us also, what do you like reading yourself? Like you mentioned Sally, but are there any other books you might have read lately that you'd like to recommend to us?
Oh, thanks for asking. It's such a great question. Well, I have to say one of my favorite books of 2022, like most people, was Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. I don't know if
Mm,
you read that
no,
by
I haven't read that one.
I loved it. And
I'll have
it's
to
funny,
check it
so many
out.
people, they said the same thing. They would say it's about gamers, but it's really not about gamers, and you don't have
Mm,
to be a gamer to appreciate it. So I think initially I resisted it, just thinking that it was, but then so many people I trust recommended it. And I listened to the audio, and I have to say, there were so many beautiful sentences that I thought I have to go and buy this book because I need to see it in print and I want to reread this. And I mean, the audio was fantastic, and it kind of kept me walking. I'm trying to take more breaks and not sit at my laptop so much. So looking forward to going out for a walk and listening to that really kept me going.
Yeah.
And then another book I loved, I think maybe the year before that, was Sorrow and Bliss by Meg Mason.
Yeah, I've read that one.
And so I'm very much looking forward to her next book. And then I went and I read her memoir. I love to read memoir as well, and that was wonderful. So I'm looking forward to her next one.
Sorry, I'm going to sneeze, I think.
Oh, okay. Bless you.
Thanks. And what are you doing? I'm really interested to know, what are you doing at the moment? Have you got something else on the go?
I do. I've just started on a new book, and I was revising a manuscript that would follow The Perfect Neighborhood. So I hope to turn that back into my agent maybe within the next week or so. But as we've been working on it, I started something new just because that waiting period can be so, hard when you're checking your email, you're refreshing your inbox every 30 seconds. So I started something, and this one is, it's about two friends. They're young men in their 20s who they've been friends since they were in kindergarten together, and their families have become friends. And they've gone out to Wyoming. They're ski instructors, and they go skiing on a Saturday afternoon, and one returns and one doesn't. And it's kind of about, what happened there, and sort of what goes on, how their families, that friendship, how it's tested over the course of wondering where is the one son. So
that sounds like an interesting.
I'm hoping. I'm trying. This one I'm doing, The Perfect Neighborhood, as you know, is first person. But this one I'm trying to do it in third person and move among the different characters. So I've only shown it to one friend so far as I've been working. So I'm trying to, and she has wonderful advice and feedback. So as soon as we chat, I go back and I try to improve it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it'll need many more revisions, but so far it's keeping me busy. It's winter here in New Jersey and it's freezing. So it's good to have an indoor activity.
I can imagine. Yeah, we've got very hot weather here at the moment.
Oh, I'm jealous.
And could you tell us a bit about the research that you did for The Perfect Neighborhood?
Oh, sure. I guess one thing I wanted to get right was the questions that police would ask if you reported your child missing. So I was fortunate. I found a list, almost like a checklist of the things that they would ask. Is there any, has there been any friction in the family? Anybody showing a special interest in your child? Kind of really checking the house from top to bottom and checking the neighborhood, start looking locally before going beyond that. And then a friend of mine had also recommended, there's a Facebook group called Cops and Writers. And so writers can write in
and can ask.
And ask, right? So I did a bit of research there, and then the main character, Rachel Barnes, she's a real estate agent, and one of the things that I've written about a lot in my freelance career is real estate. So I wanted to kind of draw on that, different things that she would be experiencing, and so I liked kind of being able to pull from that real life experience and kind of drop that in.
And Kim wonders if there's any other genres that you'd like to write.
Oh, that's a good question. I will say I have a rom-com that sits in a drawer that I have not been able to sell. And I would love to have that see the light of day someday. But so far, I don't know if something is missing or, I would get nice feedback, but also conflicting feedback where people would, I guess editors would say, I love the flashbacks. I connected more with the flashbacks. And then other editors would say, I like the present day, but I didn't really like the flashbacks.
Really? So it's a bit confusing what to,
Right.
Is it something that you think you'll go back to and maybe try and rehash a bit?
I hope so. I hope
Yeah.
so. I'm working with this summer. I was very fortunate to sign with a new agent who's wonderful, and so I'm hoping that when we get through the revisions on my next thriller, maybe I can, ask her to
Have a
help
look.
me get
Yeah.
this in better shape, because
Yeah.
I love reading lighthearted things. Even I have 3 children, and of course they know, that I've written this book where a boy goes missing on his way home from kindergarten, and then they know a little bit about what I'm planning to do in this next book, and they keep saying, like, Mom, why so dark? Why don't you go back to try to be funny, try to be lighter, get out of this, where's this darkness coming from?
I think sometimes a comedy book is one of the hardest probably to write
It
as
is.
well. It's hard to, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know. I just remember reading Bridget Jones' Diary,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I read that from cover to cover. I think I only took a break to like fix a meal and then sit right back down. So I anything that can make me laugh, I love to read that.
Yeah, yeah. And what do you hope readers will love about your book?
I hope that it provides an escape from reality to kind of just slip into the world of Oak Hill, and kind of just, you'll almost like eavesdrop on these neighbors and these voices. And I feel like I wasn't necessarily trying to impart. I know a lot of times people write with like a theme or a lesson in mind. And I think it's interesting when the babysitter character says, like, you never really know who watches your babysitter. Or it's kind of, I remember times when I was growing up, I babysat a ton. And many people would call and they would get a referral, or they would refer me, somebody would refer me to someone I didn't know. And my mom would always say, that's crazy. I can't believe these people they've never met you. They don't know you. And now they're
And
leaving
they're
their kids with
trusting
you
you
for,
with their
right,
baby.
5 or 6 hours. And it is kind of crazy. So it's just, and also when Billy's walking home, I think one thing that became kind of a hot topic or a controversial topic with readers is what is the appropriate age to let a child walk home. And you have, some parents who are like the helicopter parents who don't want them to go anywhere. And then you have the free range parents who say, like, let them explore, that's how they learn. And so personally, I wasn't really I don't take a side. I just kind of put it out there, and I think it's really interesting to hear people's opinions. And then also some people will say Billy does, a little texting with his babysitter, and he's almost 6, and I think of him as advanced for his age. But I've had a lot of people say, oh, an almost 6-year-old can't read, they can't type. And I'll think,
really?
like, meanwhile, I don't know, I've got this tiny nephew who's been like on gadgets forever. So I don't know. I guess it depends on where you are and how much exposure kids have had. So exactly. It's interesting to see what comes up.
And I'm wondering if you have a favorite place to write.
Oh, that's a good question. I used to be very, I guess, precise, where I would write at my dining room table, and I would kind of stare. I live not far from a main street, so I would look out on the traffic on Main Street, kind of let my mind wander. Now I'm up in my attic, and that has kind of become my default space, and it's a little bit more quiet away from the rest of the family, especially while we were all home during the pandemic. It was good to kind of sneak away. So this is like the 3rd floor. And then in good weather, I try to sneak out onto my porch and write there and get some fresh air.
Yeah, nice. Kim wonders if there were any characters who were more difficult for you to develop.
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you. I think I wanted to get, I guess, the right balance for Billy's mom, Rachel, because the book opens with her. And of course, she's the one who's kind of facing the hardest circumstances, her son who's gone. And before this, she has been kind of, I don't want to say like a cold character, but she's been the one mom who's kind of gone back to work, and she has her reasons for going back to work, but she feels almost on the outside of that social circle because all these other moms are staying at home and they're planning these elaborate play dates. So I think I wanted her to be that way, like a little bit different from the other moms, but I still wanted readers to like her and to
Yeah.
be sympathetic to her situation.
Mm.
So that was kind of a challenge to make
Yeah.
her, a little bit colder, but also still, you're kind of still hoping she gets a good outcome.
Yeah. And what have you found to be the hardest part so far of your publishing journey?
Oh, pretty much every step, I have to
Yeah.
say. I guess like finding the discipline to keep going, especially when you get to a middle part and you don't know what to write next.
Mm.
And I think what helped me with The Perfect Neighborhood is that because I was flipping among different voices and different points of view, if I got stuck on one, I would kind of skip ahead and write a different character's voice or a different scene for them. So I think kind of staying motivated to finish. And then I think revising is always tough. I think when you think you've got something in good shape, then to hear like, okay, you need to get to this faster, or
Yeah.
you need to cut this, or you're repeating yourself, and then you have to go back and do another reread. And then there's so much rejection. I felt like I got close with a couple of other publishers, and then people would say, our readers didn't like the idea of a child in peril, and so we're passing. And so,
Okay.
so that's hard to hear, which I
Yeah.
understand. I'm a mother, and when you're the author, of course, you know the outcome, so you're you're less anxious. But I think that's been hard, and then I think it's hard I think there are so many people out there now reviewing anonymously, or just people will say, I guessed every plot twist, and so
Yeah.
you hope to make it twisty. And also sometimes I'll think, if you guessed that, that's fine. Sometimes I'll guess a plot twist and it doesn't necessarily take away my enjoyment. It's just kind of like, okay,
Yeah.
I read so much in this genre, I guess I was on the right track. But it's hard to please every reader. So unfortunately, I mean, I would say there are hard parts at every part of of the journey.
Yeah. And do you find that the characters have stayed with you after you've finished the book?
I think a little bit. I've been honored that some people will ask, "Oh, have you thought about a sequel?" Or the way it ends, would you go on and write a sequel? And I have to say, as much as they've stayed with me, I haven't gotten that far where I could come up with another plot, or what to do, where to take Allison next, or if we want to see Cassidy after college. I don't know, but I'm flattered that people would be willing to read a sequel if I could come up with something.
Yeah. I find that a lot with readers, that they really want to know, especially if you've loved the book and really got into it and loved the characters, you really want to know what happens to them afterwards.
Right.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for chatting with me. It's been great talking
thank you
to
for
you.
having me.
And thanks for the people who joined in to watch and the questions.
Yes, thank you. And thanks for your questions.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you for watching.